talk about anxiety and kind of get to know it a little bit, and then talk about some ways to help manage that as we kind of go through these really weird times. Okay, so first up, what is anxiety? It's something that a lot of us kind of know when we feel it, but we don't necessarily know exactly what it is, and you know what to do about it then afterward. So anxiety is it's something that helps us, alerts us to danger. It helps us prepare and pay attention to our surroundings. It's our body's natural response to stress, and it's completely normal and protective. Anxiety in some ways really can help us. It really wants to protect us. Okay, so anxiety triggers our body's automatic fight, flight, or freeze reactions. And these happen in the most ancient parts of our brain, and that's referred to as the limbic system. And so the limbic system, we're going to have a diagram up here about what our brain actually looks like. So the limbic system is the parts that are in color, the green, the blue, and the purple there. And right underneath that area of our brain is our brain stem. And our brain stem is where our brain and our spine meet. So the brain stem is where it gets our, the rest of our body kind of gets all of the information from our brain. So when we are feeling, that we're noticing danger is sort of happening, we need to have that light fast reflex so that our muscles can get into action to run, and that's part of the fight, flight, or freeze action that we have. So the limbic part of the brain, it's the most ancient part of the brain. And so it was, designed for us to quickly respond to threat for survival, when we were living in caves and whatnot. But now we no longer have to run from the saber-toothed tigers. And so our limbic system reacts to stressful psychological threats. Our brains don't know the difference sometimes. They don't know if we are under physical danger or if we're under psychological danger. And our brains tend to act the same way. And that's kind of what creates that sense of anxiety that we feel, because trying to protect us from danger. So, knowing that our brains are wired to, experience anxiety, that may help stop worrying that we're worrying too much. When I talk to a lot of, clients and youth and teens, we get this sense, what are we worrying about? And then we get worried that we're worrying too much. So all this to say that anxiety is completely natural, normal. We're designed to feel it. And so don't worry too much about worrying, okay? So now that we know that anxiety is normal and our brains are ultimately trying to protect us, let's focus on some ways to help us manage it. Okay, so there's been a lot of, anxiety around COVID-19, which makes a whole lot of sense. We're in, uncharted territory. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of, fear and grief and worry out there. And we're all kind of feeling it together. One thing is that when we're following these protocols that are being set up for us to shelter in place, to limit where we are, traveling to, we're protecting ourselves, right? And we're protecting our families for sure. But we're also protecting and helping others. This is kind of something that we're able to kind of be in service right now for others, even by just staying home. So, that's pretty awesome, right? Okay, so the next thing is thinking about what we can control and what we do not have control over. This is something that I've used with clients before, but this diagram here really shows about things that are really related to COVID-19, okay? So things that we can control are positive attitude, which I know is not always easy to maintain a positive attitude, and that's completely okay. You know, give yourself a break here. You know, if you're your own social distancing, limiting your social media. Um, let's see, finding fun things to do at home, turning off the news, your kindness and grace. Those are all things that you can control, and I'm sure that you're working, you know, hard to try to do those things. Some of the things that you can't control, if other folks are following the rules of social distancing, and that can be really frustrating, but we don't ultimately have control over other people's behaviors. Um, the amount of toilet paper at the store, we don't really have control over that either. It's my hope that everybody will think that we're all in this together, and we'll leave some of these necessities for everyone. But again, we don't have control over that. Predicting what will happen, that's kind of the biggest one right now, right? It's this feeling of unknown. We don't know where we're going to be, and that's something we can't control right now, and it's something that we might have to just let it be for now, and not, you know, necessarily become overwhelmed by thinking about how to predict the future, because we're not mind readers, right? Even though some of us really want to be. Okay, and how long this will last, same thing, right? It's something that's out of our control, not known, and that can be really hard to kind of handle. So, you know, one of the things, you know, some of the things that we're going to, you know, suggest or encourage you to do, right, is taking a break from social media for the COVID-19 information. We get a lot of our news and information from, you know, social media sites now. And, you know, it's a way that we connect with our friends and our families. But right now it's also being used as, you know, as a tool for communication. And so, you know, I would encourage you to, you know, try to take a break from social media, especially when it comes to taking in all of that information. And try to find other distracting things, like, you know, your favorite shows, you know, what's on Netflix. I know that some of the other cable networks, those apps, they're offering, you know, month-long free trials. Try to take advantage of things like that. Movies, right? What are your favorite movies? Maybe something light, right? Rather than, I see some people have been watching things like Contagion. Don't watch Contagion, just watch something that's funny. And video games. I know that a lot of my youth love video games. And does anybody know about this Animal Crossing video game? I see it's kind of sweeping the internet, and I have not played it, but it looks really fun, and it looks really like it's going to be completely distracting, right? It looks nice, it looks sweet. You're helping animals, cross water or something? I'm not really sure. Has anybody played this game? If so, will you show me later how to do it? Okay, so the other thing that we have for you on the next slide is talking about these mobile apps to help us with anxiety. And several of these are actually developed and created by youth. So the Breather app, that's free for Apple and Android users, and that was a Dr. Vo in British Columbia, Canada, developed this. for youth. The Stop, Breathe, and Think is a mobile app for youth with meditations and mindfulness and compassion. So that's something to check out if you're interested. Calm.com, that seems to be the one that a lot of folks know about. Again, it's a free website and mobile app with guided meditation and relaxation exercises. And then Insight Timer, it's a free mobile app with virtual bells. So you can have some time, it tells you when the meditations are kind of up, which can be really helpful. So you don't have to think about like, how long have I been here? Am I meditating long enough? It'll tell you. And so Plum Village Zen Meditation, again, some meditations there for you. Mind Shift is a free mobile app for teens developed, by Anxiety BC. I guess that's another British Columbia site. With mindfulness and other coping skills for anxiety. And Smiling Mind is a mindfulness app for young people from Australia. And Headspace is another meditation made simple app. So those are some, and again, we're going to be putting, either take a picture of this with your phone, or we're going to be putting up the webinar on our website so you can click through it. And so you'll have access to this too. So don't feel like you have to, furiously write everything down. So one last thing, I know that doing school online is strange. And from what I've heard from students, it's sometimes actually more challenging and isolating, which can raise anxiety, which is perfectly normal. So I know that many of you are on spring break this week, and my hope for you is that you try to use this time to really relax and reset, and to try to really separate yourself from school right now, and just take this time to take a break, give your brain a break, because it's been working really hard trying to manage all these things while being at home, right? So again, relax, reset during this break. And then when you return, try to increase your social connections with friends by maybe doing homework together over FaceTime or Google Hangouts or Zoom, right? It might give you the social connection that you're used to when you're in class. Some of these things we took for granted, right? We didn't necessarily notice that we have a lot of social interaction just by being in the classroom with our peers and our friends, and we're missing that. So, try to create some sort of virtual space for you to spend time with your peers while, helping each other out with some homework. And, trying to set up a realistic schedule, right? It's hard right now, but sometimes having a schedule and having a routine can help take some of the stress and anxiety off of us. So try to set up a schedule, but also it's really okay to give yourself breaks and to know that sticking to a schedule isn't always going to happen. Things are going to come up, and that's okay too. Okay. So last but not least, use our community call-in hours or call our intake coordinator if you'd like to speak with a counselor. We'll have information about that. Shirley will talk about that at the end. So now I think we're gonna take some questions, right?
We are, Julie. Let's see what we have. So somebody is saying hello. There's no name, and then there's a participant who is asking.
Hi.
There is a participant who is asking, how do I stop getting into a spiral of worry?
Okay, yeah, that's a big question, right, Shirley? Spiral of worry. So that happens oftentimes, right? We'll start thinking of one thing and it'll lead us to another and another, and we kind of sometimes call that catastrophic thinking, where we can't stop that spiral. My suggestion for that is to really become aware of what the thought actually is that you're having, and then what emotion is that that you're feeling, where you're feeling it in your body. Just trying to bring some awareness can really sort of stop that spiral in its tracks. There is a great tool called a thought log or thought record, and you can find that online through like Therapist Aid or whatnot, or I can email to you. Where it's you're kind of concentrating on thinking about what your thoughts are, and then what your feelings are, and what your behaviors are, and what alternative thoughts you might be able to trade them out for. So that's one thing I would recommend for the spiral of worry.
Okay, Julie. And another question is, how do I stop the intrusive and concerning thoughts?
Right. Okay. So that is similar, right? So intrusive thoughts are these automatic thoughts that kind of come into our minds. And oftentimes these thoughts are ones that, we've thought about before. It's not necessarily that this one event is all of a sudden creating these ideas and thoughts in our heads, right? We've thought about these before. We get, oh my gosh, what if this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and it feels like it overtakes us. But the more that we're able to, bring awareness to these thoughts, and to, try to trade them in for alternative thoughts, what are the other possibilities, that might be out there, are things to consider.
Great. And Julie, last, a participant would like to know, last night I had a panic attack and I can't figure out why. How do I figure out what is causing it?
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that you're having a panic attack. That can be pretty serious, both sort of psychologically and emotionally and physically. And so when you're saying a panic attack, you're trying to figure out why. Well, that makes a lot of sense, right? When something happens to us, we often want to figure out the cause so that we can get rid of the cause. And oftentimes we won't have a cause. Something subconsciously is triggering a panic attack. So, what I would encourage you to do when you're in the throes of a panic attack is to try some grounding techniques. Oftentimes, with panic attacks, you hear people sort of encouraging to breathe. Breathing when you're having a panic attack is like really hard to do, and I recognize that. So sometimes using a grounding technique, like I think Shirley talked about during our first webinar, the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique, it's really trying to become aware of your environment and to focus your senses on things that are outside of you. So that's going to bring your level of panic kind of down at the moment, and it's going to really kind of ground you first, and then you can start trying the deep breathing techniques. And in terms of trying to figure out why with the panic attack, again, there's a lot of things that can cause them, and I think being able to manage them and being able to cope with them is kind of the first place to start. Shirley, do you have any other tips on panic attacks?
I agree with you, Julie. I love the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. I think that's great. I also like the idea of aromatherapy, putting a scent on your arm or a spray of fragrance in the room, and just really, breathe in that scent. Always make it sure that it's your favorite scent, and something that you would really want to spend some time with, and just focus on the smell and where that takes you, and hopefully that'll ground you.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. It looks like that's it for questions right now. Okay, there is one last question I see.
Mm-hmm.
So this participant is having some anxiety about missing activities such as prom. How can I deal with this?
Okay, that's a good question, and it's something. So these webinars for youth and teens, we're we're going to do a series. Okay. So we're going to have, at least another one. And I'm going to address some of these fears and worries about, about what about having to grieve the loss of something like not being able to have your prom, or the sports season being canceled, or various different activities sort of like ending without being able to sort of say goodbye to them. So if it's okay with this participant, if we can hold on, and I'll go into more detail, okay, when we talk about our next, when we have our next webinar about this, I'm going to go into it a great deal. So if that sounds okay to you, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. All right. We have another question, and that is, how do I maintain normal sleeping patterns?
Okay. Normal sleeping patterns. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's sleep is kind of, been off. I mean, mine has. So, establishing a schedule and a routine during the day, I think is going to be able to help you then set a schedule and a routine for night. Avoiding, caffeine at night. Or even in the afternoon is gonna help. Trying to have all devices off. Using aromatherapy, like Shirley was talking about, lavender. Spraying some lavender in your room can really help. Being able to fall asleep. It's a relaxing essential oil. Same with taking a bath in lavender essential oil would be something worth trying. And getting up the same day. I mean, the same time every day. That can be difficult right now, but I think that will help be able to get to bed at a decent hour.
Great. And last, Julie, this participant is saying that their appetite is all over the place because of worry. What can I do?
Right. Okay. So, again, that makes a lot of sense. When we're feeling anxious, some of us, don't have much of an appetite. When we're feeling low, we tend to have a larger appetite, especially now that most of us are working 10 feet from our refrigerators. And we're having to go to the grocery store maybe once a week if we can, if we're lucky, or we don't know what deliveries we're getting on any given day, so it makes sense. Again, I think it's about, if you're able to try to set a schedule for yourself. And when it comes to food, being really kind to yourself, right? A lot of us are craving maybe more comfort foods right now, and that's okay. We don't have to have stir-fried kale and whatever. We can have macaroni and cheese out of the box. Like, that's perfectly okay right now. So, I think by easing some of this anxiety and this worry, then we'll be able to normalize, things like appetite and sleep.
Great. Great. Thank you so much, Julie. This was really helpful.
Oh, my pleasure. It was nice imagining seeing all of you here.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you who have any additional questions or are looking for more one-on-one support, please know that JFCS now has phone drop-in hours every day of the week: Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 a.m. until noon, and Tuesday and Thursday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Please call us at 609-987-8100 and dial extension 00 to get connected. We will continue to offer community webinars. Our next scheduled webinar will be Tuesday, April the 14th at 3 p.m. Don't Get Too Close, led by Andrea Gaynor. In the first of a recurring series, Andrea will help us focus on what positive perspectives we can take with us after the health crisis has subsided, be it a new skill or a new outlook on how to connect with family and friends. At JFCS, we are here for you during this new normal and throughout the healing and rebuilding process. When our offices reopen, remember that we offer counseling services for all ages at 2 locations, our Princeton office on Alexander Road and our East Windsor Heightstown office on Main Street. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe and be well.